Hey, good morning, everybody. Again, just want to stay in touch, try to figure out ways to make sure that we are connecting with one another, thinking about you guys every day, praying for you guys. And again, I hope this is a way we can stay in touch. I'm going to talk about performance standard number 2, instructional planning today. And I'm going to read that standard to you. The teacher consistently plans using state and local district curricula and standards, effective strategies, resources, and data to address the differentiated needs of all students. First off, let me say that I look at this standard every time I come into your classroom. A lot of times, I look even before I come in. It's one of the things I do when I know that I'm coming out into the school. I start pulling up the lesson plans for the people that I plan to visit that day. I try to stick to a regular schedule, making sure I see, for example, all kindergarten teachers in one day, or all seeing if we're in line with one another, seeing if we're kind of teaching the same things, those kinds of things. But I look at this standard even before I come in. I'll pull up your lesson plans. I pull up your yearly plans. See if they're connected and all of those things even before I come in. When I come in, I look and see. So it's one of the standards that I think is very important. I think planning is very important. I think planning is very important for myself. So I look at it. That's not to say that I don't think you guys are doing it. I understand that you guys are working hard on lesson plans. I've seen 13-page lesson plans, and I've seen half-page lesson plans just in our school. So all of those things are taking place, and I'm looking every time I come in the classroom. Let me look. Another thing that I look at is assessments. I look for assessments that are listed on the lesson plans because I think they're a big part of planning. I look to see if they're matching up with the goals and objectives that you've set. So I'm going to talk about my thoughts on how planning should go. These don't have to be your thoughts. It's just kind of what I think. I think if you incorporate these things, and a lot of you do already, that it'll really help just in general with your own planning. First, you have to map out the year. You're given a pacing guide, you're given a scope and sequence from publishers, but you have to sit down and map out how your year is going to go. You have to figure out how you are going to meet the goals and objectives that you've set for your students. You have to look at each standard and decide whether that's a standard that I need to get across in order to improve this child's future, or these children or these kids' future. You have to look and see, how am I going to do that? And am I going to hit the key things throughout the year? So you have to map out your year. After that, you have to look at assessments. How are you going to know whether you're hitting your targets for the year? And how are you going to know? So you have to plan out your assessments. Some of the assessments are given to you, like STAR or social studies and science formative assessments. And then it really doesn't matter what assessments are given to you. You just want to know that they are and that you're targeting those. And then you have to plan the other assessments to make sure you're hitting those targets as well. So sometimes you have to decide when and how to assess each standard. And sometimes that's given to you either from the district or from the school. The school Unity has tried to take away as many of those as possible, just kind of use the districts and leave it up to the teachers. But we're willing to work with you in order to figure those things out. For example, you might need to know an assessment for subtraction with regrouping and what that's going to look like. Are you going to have word problems? Are you just going to assess regrouping? Are you going to assess addition, subtraction, and subtraction with regrouping so you can see where students are struggling? Those are the kinds of things you're going to have to decide. And then lastly, you have to plan your lessons so that students will be able to complete the assessment by the time you give it. So then that becomes actually what we're talking about when we're talking about lesson plans. Those lessons, each one of them should have an objective that meets the standards. I think I should say here that you're not teaching to the test if students can answer any types of questions, but you are teaching to the assessment that you've decided, making sure that those assessments are the ones that you think assess the objectives that you've set out. The only time that you're teaching a test is if you give them the question and then you give them the same question on the test and the kid can remember that the answer is 23 and he puts 23 and he gets it right and he doesn't know how he got the answer. All right, that's a lot. So what am I looking for when I come into the classroom? I can't look for all of that, but I can see bits and pieces of it. I do look for the yearly plans. I do look at the lesson plans. We look for objectives. We look for, are the objectives in a scope and sequence that makes sense? For example, if you're teaching subtraction with regrouping, did you teach subtraction without regrouping? Have you taught addition? Have you taught, those kinds of things? And then is that in your yearly plan? If you're teaching subtraction with regrouping in April of the 5th grade, that's probably not a good idea. If you're teaching subtraction with regrouping in December of 2nd grade, that seems like pretty close to where that is, and then you'll review it over and over again. So let's talk about what TKES has to say. Here's a couple of the indicators from the Georgia DOE. Analyzes and uses student learning data to inform planning. This also has its own standard as well, but like I said, a lot of these standards ebb and flow that you can meet. If you're using the data, then you're going to meet a lot of the criteria for a lot of standards. So these standards support each other. Here's another one: develops plans that are clear, logical, sequential, and integrated across the curriculum. I just spent a lot of time about my thoughts on that. We didn't really talk about integration between standards, but it's one way to get everything in. So what questions can you ask yourself? Am I planning what should be taught? All right. If you're asking yourself, am I planning what should be taught? Do all of my plans line with the Georgia performance standards? Am I planning any unnecessary lessons because I always have done those lessons? Am I giving assessments that I don't need to give? Those kinds of things. Next question, am I planning how it should be taught? We're going to talk a little bit about strategies in the next video, but are you planning how lessons should be taught? The next question, do I have all the resources and materials to reach my objective? You need to make sure you have resources. If not, make sure you're coming to administration. We can help you out with that. And am I planning for all my students? I know I've got some low students. I know I've got some high students. I know all of these students need to meet these objectives by the end of the year. Are you planning for each one of the students? Are you planning, for example, if you have a objective that says main idea, you can actually lower the reading level past your grade level to meet the needs so that students can find out main idea. And you can also go above your reading level as well. So, I want to make sure I get this point across. I have to say that I'm pretty critical in my own head in this area from time to time. I know that. I do not think that we have set you up for success as far as lesson planning has come. I'm hoping that's going to come with the new curriculum that we're rolling out next year. You guys work very hard on your lesson plans. I know it. I can tell. We've tried to improve the lesson plan template since I've been at Unity, and we even tried again this year. We got a small group of teachers trying out a new lesson plan format that I think has been really beneficial. So I'm hoping we'll see some progress with that. I do truly believe that if we put into practice the kinds of things I've talked about today, that no matter what the curriculum, no matter what we're given next year, no matter what, we're going to be successful if we can put these plans into effect. So that's my thought on lesson plannings. Again, I'm thinking about you guys. I'll put some links up to TKES in that Google Classroom as well, so you guys can join that. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Thanks and have a great day.